Welcome to the fairest show on television. There is something much more important tonight than the fourth indictment of the former president, and that is the judgment of the current president of the United States. First tonight, will the Hawaii wildfires become Joe Biden's Katrina? That's on point. The president, of course, is commander-in-chief. But when Americans suffer, especially from a huge natural disaster, he must become the comforter-in-chief. I didn't create that term. Longtime White House correspondent Kevin Corke, and a good friend of mine, taught me that. He covered George W. Bush during Katrina when Bush flew back from vacation and looked out the window of Air Force One to survey the damage. It's not much different than Mr. Biden, who spent the weekend at the beach. Biden ignored reporters asking him about the deadliest fire in a century.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
In case you couldn't hear him, he said no comment. The Biden-Bush, Katrina, Maui similarities are stunning. At first, it appeared the wildfires on Maui only killed a few people. At first, it appeared New Orleans survived Katrina. But as the days went by, the destruction became unimaginable by modern standards. Right now, we know the Maui fires killed 99 last week. But searchers and cadaver dogs have so far only cleared 25% of the destruction. In fact, the governor of Hawaii said today that rescuers do not even know how many people are unaccounted for. In the end, the fires may claim the lives of hundreds. Sadly, we must emphasize the plural, hundreds. Right now, there's 10,000 people who are homeless. The pictures of Americans diving into the ocean to escape the flames aren't much different than the pictures of Americans floating through floodwaters in the lower Ninth Ward. At times like this, we need our president. Of course, he can't actually do much, but he must comfort us. And he must command the full resources of America's might to come help the least fortunate among us. Yet time and time again over the past week, and especially this weekend and yesterday, Mr. Biden jogged past reporters. It wasn't until today that he finally interrupted his schedule to let folks know, finally, that he would show up.
My wife Jill and I are going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we can. That's what I've been talking to the governor about. I don't want to get in the way. I've been to too many disaster areas, but I want to go make sure we got everything they need.
The White House justifies Mr. Biden's long vacations by saying he can be president from anywhere, which is true. There is no more powerful man in the world than the president of the United States. The resources at his disposal, at his order, are unmatched. So his White House has no excuse for their flat-footed response nearly 96 hours after the fires blew through. Here is his press secretary yesterday.
It is certainly deeply concerned about the people in Maui. It's been a devastation, as we have seen. You've just mentioned the loss of life. Senator Horino, who I said the president spoke to just last night, he thanked the president for the immediate support of federal agencies have delivered for residents of Hawaii. So has Senator Schatz.
Has President Biden spoken to any family members of wildfire victims or plans to in the future?
I don't have any calls to speak to it.
Sadly, Karine Jean-Pierre makes the already hard job of White House press secretary look a lot harder than it is. And in the end, responsibility lies with the president. Evidently, Mr. Biden spent the weekend literally at the beach, not working the phones and ordering an all-hands-on-deck response. We know that because earlier today, the Hawaii state senator for Maui joined NewsNation. In case you're wondering, he's a Democrat.
Are you satisfied with the federal response thus far?
No, I'm not, actually. I'm not, and this community's not at all. I mean, there's a disconnect going on. I mean, They're in Honolulu, talking to top people in Honolulu. I'm the state senator, the state rep, and the council people. We're on the ground. We have information. We have a wireless network to get stuff up in the community, and they are absolutely ignoring us.
They are absolutely ignoring us. That is unforgivable. Seriously, put aside why the fire started, we don't know. And if there was enough water pressure in the fire hydrants, there wasn't. Or why the warning systems might have failed. We don't know, but heat might have literally paralyzed the system. At this point right now, none of that matters. America needs their president. Specifically, the people suffering in Hawaii needed the president to care, but he was at the beach. Optics matter, something George W. Bush figured out after giving a statement to the White House press corps while on the golf course.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive. All right.
Later in his presidency, Bush would give up golf. He understood the optics of a wartime president on the links just didn't work. That, of course, didn't prevent him from bungling Katrina. After the Katrina flyover, he visited New Orleans, and things went from bad to worse.
It's to save lives and get food and medicine to people so we can stabilize the situation. Again, I want to thank you all for, and Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. The FEMA director's working 24 hours.
That was 18 years ago, and the punchline has literally never gone away. The criticism wasn't fair then of Michael Brown. It's not fair now, but that's the point. As president, perception is reality, and the optics of a beach vacation while cadaver dogs search Hawaii is hard to escape. That's On Point tonight. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.